When Edward the Confessor died on the 5th of January 1066, he had no children. As a result, it was unclear who was to become king. After Edward's death, there were many powerful men who put forward their claim to the throne, 4 of whom presented the strongest claims. However, the claimants came from different countries and had differing levels of support. This in turn meant that whoever became the new king had the potential to change England forever. At this time in history, there were several different ways that the throne could be passed on. Firstly, a son of a king could inherit the title, though it did not necessarily have to be the eldest son. If the son had no kings, then a male relative of a previous king could be chosen instead. The second way is post obitum, which meant after death, and it was a nomination, in this case of the throne of England. Alternatively, the king could name an heir of his choice. If this decision was made on his deathbed, it would be known as novissima verba. The witan, who was a group of nobles and leading churchmen, could either suggest an heir or support the king's own choice. And finally, there was the use of force. Claimants could challenge each other to the throne, and a successful man was crowned. 4 rivals to the throne, 4 people who claimed that they should be the next king of England. The first one we'll look at is Edgar the Outlaw. Edgar was also known as Edgar the Eighth, and he was the great-nephew of Edward the Confessor. He was related through the male line, so had the closest blood tie to Edward. Edgar was born in Hungary as his father, Edward the Exile, had just been sent there by King Canute to prevent him from causing trouble after Canute took the English throne. King Edward called for Edgar to return to England in 1057, as he had not managed to produce an heir himself. However, Edward did not name Edgar as his heir. Edgar and his sister had lived with Edward and his wife Edith since they were small children. Edgar was treated as Edward's adopted son, and many people thought of him as such. Edgar was an Anglo-Saxon and had the support of many earls. He was known as the Outlaw due to his actions after 1066. He took part in a number of rebellions against the Normans. Harald Hardrada was the king of Norway and was a successful Viking with a large army. Harald was related to King Canute, who had reigned from 1016 to 1035. His claim was that as Edward had no sons, a relative of the previous king should be chosen, therefore he himself should be king. It was said that Hardrada's father, Magnus, had been promised a throne by Canute's son, Harthacnut. Therefore Hardrada believed he had a claim to the throne through his father. However, when Harthacnut died, Edward claimed the throne instead of stepping aside for Hardrada. The next one is Harold Godwinson. Harold Godwinson was the most important earl in England as the Earl of Wessex. He was something known as sub-Regulus, which is a deputy king who ran England for Edward and represented him in battle from 1060 onwards. Harold said that Edward had promised him the throne on his deathbed. He was supported by all of the English nobles, except Tostig, Harold's brother, because they'd fallen out, and he also had the support of the witan. William the Duke of Normandy took over as the Duke of Normandy aged 7 and faced many attempts on his own life due to his position. William was a successful and brutal warrior. In 1047, his army had won a battle and cut off the hands and feet of his enemies after they made comments about his mother. The reason they did that is because William was born out of wedlock, so therefore he was also known as William the Bastard. William was a distant cousin of Edward through Edward's mother Emma. William claimed that Edward had promised him the throne earlier in his reign. In 1051, the Godwins had rebelled against Edward. William had travelled to England to give his support to Edward, and as a result, according to William, Edward promised him the throne. William said that Harold had sworn to support his claim to the throne in 1067. And this is actually evident on the Bayeux Tapestry. One of the most important pieces of evidence that we have for this period is the Bayeux Tapestry. The tapestry was made in Normandy in the 1070s and was commissioned by Bishop Odo, who was William's brother-in-law. So therefore we've got to be careful when we look at it, because it was made after the event, and William wanted to show the English that he was the rightful heir to the throne. Now, out of these, there are a number of reasons why King Edward the Confessor might have supported Harold Godwinson. Harold was the most powerful earl in England because he was the Earl of Wessex, the richest earldom in the land, and was the eldest member of the Godwin family after his brother and father had died in 1052. Harold was also Edward's brother-in-law, as Edith Godwin had married King Edward in 1045. However, King Edward and the Godwin family had a complicated history, and there had been occasions in the past where they had rebelled against the king. King Edward also had family ties to Normandy. It is unclear as to who was promised what in the years before Edward died, but this is what caused the crisis over who should be the king in 1066. When King Edward Confessor died on the 5th of January 1066, Harold Godwinson was crowned the King of England the very next day. However, William expected the throne would pass to him. He had claimed that he was promised the throne by Edward in 1051 during the dispute with the Godwin family, so straight away William started to mobilise his forces in preparation for an invasion of England as soon as he found out about Harold's coronation. William didn't invade straight away. Instead, he started to take a long-term strategy to build up his military forces whilst also preparing political and religious support for his campaign. So what I would like you to do for this one, that first one, is cut off, and it should say explain the ways or list the ways that England could be inherited. So you've got 6 questions on there. Your first one, list the ways in which England could be inherited. Second, why did Hardrada think he had a claim? Third, William. Fourth, Godwinson. Fifth, William. And then your 6th one, who do you think it should be? Who do you think should have had the throne?